We can express any ratio as a fraction, as a decimal, or as a percent. We need to know how to convert back and forth between these three formats. The decimal number 0.14 can be converted to a fraction by putting it over a power of 10. For each digit after the decimal point, in this case there are 2 digits after the decimal point, we would have a 0 after the power of 10 that would go on the bottom of the fraction, while the number that appears after the decimal point would go on the top. So 0.14 becomes 14 over 100. We would want to reduce this fraction to lowest terms. Since both 14 and 100 can be divided by 2, we need to reduce the fraction to 7 over 50. To convert a decimal into a percent, we are effectively multiplying by 100. This has the effect of moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. So 0.14 as a decimal would become 14 as a percent. 7% can be written as a fraction just by remembering that percents are per 100. 7% is the same as 7 over 100. To turn a decimal into, or percent into a decimal, we would move the decimal point 2 places to the left, or divide by 100. In this case, the decimal point starts immediately after the 7. As we move it 2 places to the left, we go to the other side of the 7 and then 1 more place. There's an empty spot in between the decimal point and the 7. We need something to hold that value because it comes after a decimal point. So 7%, when it converts, would have to have a 0 in between the decimal point and the 7 to become 0.07 as a decimal number. 0.032 as a decimal number can be turned into a fraction by putting the number 32 over a power of 10 with 3 zeros after it, or 1,000. 32 over 1,000 can be reduced because 8 goes into both 32 and 1,000. And by dividing both the top and bottom of that fraction by 8, we reduce it to 4 over 125. To turn that decimal into a percent, we would move that decimal point 2 places to the right, or multiply by 0.032 by 100. When we do that, the decimal ends up between the 3 and the 2, and we end up with 3.2%. It is okay to have decimals within percents. It is also okay to have percents that are greater than 100%. 179% is something that's valid to discuss. If we move the decimal point 2 places to the left on 179%, we get 1.79, which is greater than 1, and so they're therefore greater than 100%. To turn 179% into a fraction, we simply put 179 over 100. Percent always means per 100. To turn a fraction into a decimal or percent, it's important to remember that the bar in a fraction means division. That fraction, 3/4, actually represents 3 divided by 4. If you divide the top number 3 by the bottom number 4 in a calculator, you'll get a decimal representation of that fraction. If you multiply by 100 or move that decimal over twice, you get a percentage representation of that same fraction.